planet Earth finds itself overrun with monsters, aliens, and all manner of creatures swarming its many countries. The only defense against this threat is two young brothers, and they've got just the weapon to get the job done. If this sounds like the plot to an action game, it's not exactly, and that's because their trusty weapon is a vacuum cleaner. Welcome to Tumble Pop, a single-screen platformer released by Data East to the arcades back in 1991. Now, while the description sounds quite serious, this is actually a brightly coloured, zany little game with all kinds of interesting enemies and features packed into it. The aim of the game is to eliminate all the enemies from each stage. You do this by sucking them into your vacuum cleaner and then releasing them to have them fly out to their demise. Where things get more interesting is that you can hold on to the first enemy for a certain amount of time. While you're holding on to them, you can try to draw in more of their buddies. Get a bunch of them together, release them back out, and they'll go bouncing around the stage and wipe out some more enemies for you. Hold on to them for too long though, and it'll all backfire on you. It's an interesting dynamic that adds quite a lot to the gameplay, as you're constantly trying to top yourself and see just how many enemies you can take out in one go without costing yourself one of your lives. Depending on how long you hold the enemies for, or how many that you wipe out, you get different rewards. There's coins, bags of cash, diamonds, jewels, and power-ups that are all possible to attain. The individual letters to the word Tumble Pop, they appear in little bubbles, and if you can grab all of them, you'll head to a strictly timed bonus level, where you can have a crack at gaining some higher scores and an extra life. There's a lot to keep you occupied in this game, and you move through the stages at a pretty quick pace. You have a choice of different locations on the world map to begin the game, and the stages take place all over the world, from Antarctica to the USA to Egypt to Russia. There's plenty of locations, and the final stages even go beyond the wall itself, and they take you into outer space. Each stage has its own detailed visual appearance and different theme music to match the setting that you're in, and it does really help to keep things fresh. No one individual stage on a location lasts too long, and this is by design, as if you do drag things out or run into too much trouble, then this flying, vampire-looking dude, he's going to come down from the sky to hunt you out. He's invincible and very tough to avoid, and he will cost you a life, so you've got to vacuum up fast. On every 10th stage to a location, you hit the big boss battle, and these can be a lot of fun as you take on all kinds of massive creatures. There's dragons, there's an octopus, giant snowman, all sorts of things to defeat. They all look really detailed and colourful, they really pop, and they add a lot to the enemies that you face in the game. So the gameplay is pretty lively and addictive, and it can keep you amused for a while. Saying that though, as you're essentially doing the same kind of task over and over, it's not a game I'd be likely to complete the whole thing in one sitting. Happily, with the Evercade save state feature, you're free to put this one down at any time and then pick back up where you left off. The gameplay can seem a bit one note though if you do play it in a really long session, but the game does gradually escalate in difficulty, and that can help alleviate some of that feeling. Tougher enemies that fire projectiles at you, enemy generators that will keep pumping out enemies until you stop them, and the level designs start to become more intricate and more difficult for you to make your way around. It can become pretty tricky to not stumble into an enemy and lose a life the later on you get. And that's the game in a nutshell really. It's not overly complicated, but it is good fun. And like any arcade game worth its salt, it does get more difficult and you do lose a lot of lives, but that's how they got you throwing money into the arcade machine back in the day. With this Evercade release, you're free to chuck as much virtual money at it as you like, so that you can play the whole thing the whole way through. Like other Data East games from the time, once you reach what appears to be the final stage, you end up fighting all the bosses all over again, one by one, in a gauntlet before you reach the true, real, final boss. This is alright on the Evercade for the previously touched upon reasons, but I can imagine this being really annoying if you'd managed to reach this on the arcade back in the day. I can't imagine how much money you'd have to end up throwing at this thing to get all the way there. As touched on before, the graphics are all bright and colourful, and I enjoy the cutesy style of everything. The music is mostly well done, each location has its own track, and they're good to listen to for the most part, with a couple of them being a little bit repetitive and they do get a little bit grating. The space levels though I have to highlight in particular, having an absolutely banging soundtrack. and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the great little bit of music that plays upon completing a stage, and then the one that also plays when you complete one of the overall locations.
You did it! Tumble Pop!
Now how cheery is that? What's not to love, right? There's a 2-player mode, which makes sense as earlier in the video I did say there's 2 of you, and that plays exactly the same, just with a buddy to take on all the enemies. Me and my partner played some, and yeah, it's pretty decent fun. So overall, Tumble Pop is an enjoyable and attractive looking arcade platformer, but I'm going to award a 7 out of 10 score to. The gameplay is addictive and does just enough to keep things interesting. You'll have to play for a little while before you get bored of the overall concept. The bosses are all well put together and the music is mostly catchy. There's some replay value to be found here, particularly when playing with a friend, and it's not something that you'll be dedicating hours of your time to, but this is a pick up and play arcade game at heart after all. Well, that's Tumble Pop for you. Have you played this game, and if so, did you enjoy it, and how do you think it ranks up against the other arcade titles from Data East or on the Evercade as a whole? Thanks for watching this video, and please throw me a like or subscribe if you've enjoyed it, as there'll be more Evercade videos to come down the line. Until next time, take it easy.